one.
The bad guys.
Master of disguise, do your thing.
Where's my flowers? Prego, cappuccino.
The bad girls.
Sounds kind of made up.
You talk pretty tough for a mango with teeth.
What? Insult me next.
On August 1st.
Why is she in his mouth?
The baddest comedy of the summer pops off.
You're not nervous, right? We know what happens when you're nervous.
Honey, I'm sorry.
What? No. Help me.
The Bad Guys 2. Rated PG. In theaters August 1st.
So hi, I'm Zach from Speaking for Future First. Firstly, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
And having it premiere at Annecy is probably a special feeling for you.
Yes, definitely.
And so to get right into the film, my first question will be, what aspects did you focus on in terms of adapting Aaron's books for the sequel?
So, we've obviously been, somewhat following the books from the first film, and one of the big thing was adapting it visually. So definitely, as a graphic novel, it's black and white, and we wanted to keep a little bit of that graphic novel quality in the rendering that we were doing for the first film, and obviously for this sequel. So we have an animation that's a little stylized. I used a lot of my own influences and just talked to Aaron about it. He's an executive producer on the film, and he's big fan of the movies. And he always told us that I wrote the books, but you guys run with it and do a different animal with the films, right? So the movies don't necessarily follow the same storyline as the books, and the books go very far, much faster than the film, by the way. The one thing that there are three aspects of how we are following those books. The first one is he's really good at every book as using a new genre, cinematic genre for every book. He's playing with horror, he's playing with action, he's playing with sci-fi, he's playing with a lot of those tropes in every single one of those books. And I think that's incredibly fun to do. And so that's what we're trying to do with these films. The first movie was heist genre. I think the sequel is much more anchored in kind of like big action blockbuster films like Mission Impossible or James Bond or Fast and the Furious. That's where we're kind of like homaging on this one. The second thing that we do very in regards to the book is using some of the moments of the books to plot our story. It could be a gag, it could be a set piece, it could be a little bit of a storyline. So we do that a lot, and in this one we wanted to use a gag that he had done in book 4 or 5 or something like that, where they're in space and Wolf and Piranha share a spacesuit. And turns out Piranha has ate a little too many burritos and farts in the spacesuit. And that gag is probably one of the most iconic gag of the whole book series, and we wanted to exploit that because it was so funny, and for the audience in particular. And so we're going to space because of a fart in a spacesuit. So that's one other thing. And the last thing that we're doing a lot is like using some of the characters that he creates, not necessarily in the same exact capacity, but using some of those characters and making sure that we're kind of somewhat faithful to them. So now we have 3 new characters in this sequel, 3 bad girls, Kitty, Pigtail, and Doom, and those 3 characters are literally straight borrowed from the books. So that's kind of how we use the books and how we follow them. But he's given us so much freedom, and he's also always consulting with us and helping us out.
And what is the fun that comes with crafting these characters that are bad but aspire to be good?
What is the fun?
Yeah.
Like that we're having doing that? Well, of course, like. So the interesting thing is like when you have characters that are bad and cool at being bad, by the way, and they become good and really uncool at being good. The first thing you think is like, how can I get them back to be bad again? Because that's when the fun is, But also, like, how do you create kind of like a identity crisis within those characters so that it's you see them struggle with that new life that they're building for themselves. Wolf decided to go good, and all of a sudden he's incapable of reinserting society, and his life is incredibly boring and terrible to live. He really struggled with it, and but nonetheless he's still very hopeful that he will one day have a job and date Diane and all of this stuff. He wants to be accepted. The problem is like you can't do a 90-minute movie that's boring about somebody who's trying to get a job there. So we needed to get them out of that space and take on an adventure. That's why they get kidnapped by the bad girls to do one last job and just bring them back in the life of crime. Even though they don't want to do it, they're forced to do it.
And from what we saw teased about the concept art book, Diane seems to be a heavy focus in at some point into production. Is this because there are new ideas that surged when she got a positive reception, or was this the plan because of the book's inspiration?
That's cool. She's so important in the first movie. I think I would say equally important in this one. She's incredibly important. She's a massive centerpiece. Not a centerpiece, she's a massive piece, massive character playing a giant role in the story. But in terms of like screen time, I would say it's like the same thing as the first one. But definitely what we're doing is making sure that the relationship between Wolf and her keeps on evolving. You know, we established that there's so much, sensual tension between the two of them. And we want to keep that relationship to keep evolving to the film, yeah.
If you could describe the movie in one word, what would you go for?
Better.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your time.
Of course,
Nice
my pleasure.
meeting you.